Before we get started, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Amy McCosker and I work at CQU for the Agri-tech and education team here. And we are the facilitators, I guess, or the management team for the Gateway project, which is a project funded by the Queensland Department of Trade, Employment and Training. And we're delivering Gateway in partnership with AgriFutures Australia, the Queensland Ag Teachers Association and AgForce with their School to Industry Partnership Program, which is often known as SIP. It's a really exciting project for us. We've enjoyed the first part of it, I guess, stream 1, and stream 2 is still to come. And we've been partnering with a lot of great schools from all over Queensland. And these webinars are a part of what we're offering with the Gateway project. So it's they've gone really well so far, sort of focusing on different industries, and today's focus is agribusiness. We've gathered two really interesting and speakers today, Jonathan Reid and David Cowan from two separate banks. So we've got Jono from Westpac and David from NAB. Let's start with you, Jonathan. Just give us a bit of an introduction to what you do at Westpac, the type of team that you're in, and yeah, how your job sort of what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Amy. So my name's Jonathan Reid. I'm an assistant relationship manager at Westpac here in Rockhampton. Only been in the role for about 13 months, so still pretty fresh. I sit in the commercial and agri team, North Queensland, so effectively draw a line inland from Rockhampton and north above. That's the sort of region that we sort of sit in. In my job as a ARM, or assistant relationship manager, we're not directly customer facing, that's more a manager role, but we do assist in the day-to-day operation as relationship managed customers. So whether that be something really generic, opening or closing term deposits, or credit card applications, or something, security structure of the clients, if we're releasing, retaking mortgages, we sort of look after that. And we also assist in any of the lending. So whether it's a increase on existing facilities, or if it's property purchase or anything. So we liaise with the manager to help present that deal to another team within the bank. That's my sort of role, what a day-to-day sort of operation can look like for me.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And Jonathan, 13 months in, you're sort of at the start of your career. David, I'd say you're a bit further along the road career-wise. Is that fair to say?
Little bit of ouch there.
Oh, no, just a little bit further along, a few more years in.
Yeah. So I'm an agribusiness manager at NAB, based here in Rockhampton. I look after a portfolio of NAB agri customers across the CQ region. Those customers include broadacre grain growing to the variety in the beef industry. So obviously studs, breeding, backgrounding and fattening operations. In NAB Regional and Agri, we aim to spend 3 days a week out of the office visiting customers or attending industry events. So customer visits can vary from just a property tour, looking at crops, looking at a mob of weaners, through to sitting around the kitchen table and working on a proposal to buy another property. And obviously there's a certain amount of work to be done in the office as well, meeting customers' banking and finance requirements, and the compliance work we have to do too, and Jonathan be in the same boat, so that we can keep our banking licenses.
Mm-hmm. So 3 days a week, you're sort of out and about, and going to, whether it be industry events around town or out to people's properties. And then you mentioned compliance and sort of that office work that you do on those other days of the week. What's a typical day in the office sort of entail for you, David?
So, for example, some of that compliance, we have to do an annual review on our customers, and that's to meet APRA guidelines. So financial statements, it's usually involved a farm visit as well, but just looking and then with the customer, looking at making sure our loan structure is appropriate for them going forward, and just making sure that we do meet our obligations of doing that annual review. Other things we have to update. We want to stay current with our property valuations. I'm sure you're aware of how much property values have appreciated over the last few years. Part of the way we lend is our security values and looking at our equity of our customers. So staying up to date on that type of information as well. It's all part of the role.
Yeah, it's a pretty dynamic and it sounds like constantly evolving sort of role. How do you sort of keep on top of all of that?
Um, we're probably project managers, Amy. We're jacks of all trade, master of none. So we have specialists across all the various divisions that give us a hand. We have equipment finance specialists, trade and working capital specialists, market specialists. So we're a conduit from the customers through to those to make their lives easier.
Mm. And Jono, we've got a bit of a connection here through CQU as well, in the sense that you're also studying as well as working for Westpac. Tell me, what led you to, I guess, applying your study and your career to agribusiness? Where'd that interest come from?
Yeah, so it was a bit like growing up, no exposure to a farm, didn't grow up on a property or anything like that. I did have some exposure growing up, which was really cemented in high school. I had a few connections there and ended up doing some work placement on one of the Queensland government research stations for a few weeks. So that sort of put me into ag. Went and studied at ag science down at Gatton there. Did a research project there looking at feed performance, and then that led to sort of my PhD here at the university. I sort of got halfway, well, not halfway, probably a bit more than halfway, realised that research wasn't where I wanted to spend long term. So it was actually at Beef Week, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, that I went around, spoke to a few of the banks and ended up at Westpac. I guess through that exposure growing up in ag, it really sort of cemented my my passions in ag, I guess, really. So always sort of had links back to there, and through my undergrad degree, there was a lot of economics courses that we had to sort of cover as part of that. So I sort of always knew that I had an economic interest in ag, and I figured what better way than to go into agribusiness with a bank, sort of. So.
Hmm. And David, does any of that resonate with you? Where did your inspiration, I guess, come from?
Yeah, look, I actually grew up on the family farm out there at Jambin towards Biloela, Amy. So long time local resident. And I guess I was always okay at the accounting subjects at school, but I thought, accountants are stuck in an office 5 days a week, which didn't sound real exciting. Whereas getting into banking, I did a business degree majoring in agribusiness at UQ a long time ago, and joined the old QIDC out at Emerald, which is so QIDC's become part of Suncorp on a grad intake.
Yeah, okay. And then what led you, I guess, back to Rockhampton, well, I grew up in Emerald and we thought of Rockhampton as the big smoke. No, I live here, I'm not so sure, but
Yeah, well, family, actually, in 10 words or less. My wife's family are down the beach. My parents were out at the farm. When we started having children, we were actually in Mackay, but yeah, getting back here, having that network. And look, it's really interesting, way back then, to get a job with one of the big four in Rockhampton in agri banking, you're almost having to read the death notices in the paper. You're just to wait for the opportunities, because Rockhampton being a regional hub, with not just high schools but the CQU as well, it's a great place to be based.
that was what I was thinking as both of you were speaking, was as far as working in agribusiness, this must be a pretty good patch to cover this sort of central Queensland. We've got some great cropping, some great beef, there's a lot of opportunity here, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. And it just stuns me. So obviously, like I say, I started in Emerald, and it just amazes me that younger generation aren't so keen on moving out there, because, yeah, within 150 kilometres of Emerald, you've got such a diversity of industry.
Mm, that's for sure. So You mentioned sort of, being good at that accountancy sort of stuff at school. My next question is, I guess, some of the people listening today will be teachers. They might have identified that in some of their students that they would be good at a job in agribusiness. What sort of subjects do you see being useful, I guess, at say a high school level? Um, I remember being in high school and thinking that my subject choices were the be all and end all. And, personally now I reflect back and think that maybe I shouldn't have been so worried that you can sort of, that your career pathways and what you're going to be doing in your 30s, 40s, and 50s might not be super related to what you're studying when you're 15, 16, 17. Is that fair to say?
Look, and yeah, like my sons are in their 20s, and I think it's so tough
Mm,
on students trying to work out at 15, 16, 17 what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. It's a very tough call. But yeah, so yeah, those accounting type subjects, yeah, they had various names. This is back in the 80s, Amy. It was a different world. So but no, I was always fairly handy at those. The other thing that I did that I think helps prepare us for those customer meetings and interactions, I did public speaking and debating at school. And I don't think there's not an industry where that doesn't do you any harm either. Whether it's actually just doing something like this or sitting down with customers and negotiating. Um, I've got a meeting tomorrow. I know they're going to be asking me for a sharper interest rate, and I've got to work through that with them. So yeah, it's not just the accounting subjects. There are other things as well.
mm. And Jono, did you find at school there were subjects that you're harking back to now, or is it more of a learn on the job sort of thing? Do you think?
Uh, yeah, it's a bit different because it is very sort of learn on the job, and obviously coming into this job with no financial literacy, it's a big, what is it, a small fish in a big pond sort of thing. There is a lot of information to sort of learn and get through. Looking back, yeah, your accountant business, any of those subjects would probably help, not necessarily as a way to learn what we do, but at least gain some of that language skill and understand sort of the terminology that is used and how to understand that. I guess the only thing would be probably math. We don't do a lot of super technical theoretical math. It's all pretty stock standard, and 9 times out of 10 systems will do it for us. We just input the data correctly, and it spits it out. But the biggest thing about it is having the sort of understanding of what the data actually tells us. So those skills are sort of understanding the numbers and the trends and identifying those patterns and what they mean. That's probably a pretty key sort of skill set.
Mm. And maybe utilizing the technology that is being used now to do these calculations versus doing them with a pen and paper, which might have been, a thing of the past. My next sort of topic I wanted to discuss with you was emerging roles and where you see this sort of agribusiness space heading. I would imagine, and in the other industry webinars we've been having, technology and the role of things like AI and um, coding and those types of things is only going to grow. Do you think that those thoughts apply here in the agribusiness space as well?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you can go to a meeting now that doesn't start with AI and its implications moving forward. It represents such a big opportunity for the industry, not only to sort of reflect on what we do, but also moving forward and how we can improve on our processes to really improve the customer experience and the customer's sort of enjoyment with lending. So yeah, definitely right from the get-go, I think AI could seriously improve what we do and how we can sort of utilise that information. And AI extends right through the system, like not even just from banking, but if we look at AI and its implications into precision farming technologies and how that's going to transform the lives of producers and make their job easier, whether it's collecting weather parameters in the paddock to informing sort of models of best inputs sort of at the time. So yeah, I think AI has a really key potential moving forward.
Mm. And sometimes in these conversations, I think about ag industry careers, we focus, I guess, on the direct career. So, in the sense of agribusiness today, we're speaking about banking. And perhaps there's students out there that think, oh, well, I don't want to be a banker. Perhaps I don't have the people skills or or like David was discussing there, some of those communication skills that you really need to be a customer facing member of a bank. Um, But those other careers in terms of the technology and the people creating the tech that will power this new generation, I guess, Jonathan, do you see those emerging careers, perhaps jobs we haven't even thought of yet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is easy to think agribusiness is a banker and that's it. But any role that effectively impacts agriculture in any way, I think, is associated with agri. So whether we talk about data analysis or data science behind AI models, it's all sort of interrelated and correlated to agri and agribusiness by extension. So yeah, mechanics, engineers, all of that sort of feeds back into how they use technology and what sort of tools and equipment are available for producers. So there's a plethora of jobs out there that no one's even probably thought of yet. And in 5 years, there'll be a new 5 or 10 uni degrees that cover off on it. But yeah, no, especially there's so many careers that are sort of forming, I think, that no one would be thinking of now.
Mm. David, you've obviously seen some trends come and go through agriculture. I was thinking before when you were talking about sort of relationships and going into meetings to discuss things, you've obviously ridden with families through the ups and downs of, seasonal challenges and being there being there with them through that as well. So, reflecting on those emerging careers, do you think some of this tech stuff is going to pass through, or do you see it as a real disruptive force in the market?
Well, look, yeah, innovation. And I think, and if we reflect, ag has always been big on innovation. The stump jump plough was very big in its day, wasn't it? So ag's always been on the front foot.
What's a stump jump plough, David?
Good point. Yeah.
Tell me, I don't know.
Get Copilot to tell you all about it. So ag has always been very good at innovation, whether it's technology or looking at paddock to plate, for example. But also just supporting what Jonathan was saying, only about 15% of our staff are customer facing. So out of 35,000 odd, that's a lot of jobs where you don't have to be customer facing, but you can still be working for a bank and taking part in what we do.
What are those other roles? Obviously there's many, many when you say 35,000, but some key roles, I guess, for those listening who maybe, when you think of agribusiness, just think of bankers. Who are the other people behind the scenes that are keeping that agribusiness machine going?
Well, look, one of the most important, obviously, is our credit partners, the people that actually approve the loans. It's our job to present them the information to get to yes, but they're the ones with the skills and the knowledge that actually do hit the button and commit the bank to the deals. That's one part. Obviously, technology, we have various parts, whether it's just helping us get our laptops working, or again developing the AI, the app on your phone to do your banking, all those teams, and then we have a lot of people doing our settlements and that type of work. Just some of the small jobs. There's not too many there's not too many broad industry roles that there's not something in the bank that you can do.
Mm. Yeah, I think everyone just sees the bank manager, right? That's there shaking the hands, not the
Yeah.
machine behind that's creating the information that he's sharing. So, Jonathan, obviously, and I don't know if this links in with your role, and tell me if I'm sort of asking you a question that's not really related to you here, but I was just thinking then about we did an open day here recently where we had some people come and talk about some of the, I guess, what would the word be? Like a farming platform that they're using, that the farmers input data into, and they're using it as, some of their forecasting, I guess. And I guess that helps in the long term with their financials. So is that sort of stuff happening? Is there technology that you guys use behind the scenes as well to help with forecasting the value of future crops and that type of thing?
It's probably a bit out of scope for what we do. Obviously, we sort of make projections based on stable sort of income. So we use historical financials to sort of predict where customers will be and where they should be operating. So there is a level of using previous data to inform future decisions. Probably not so much in terms of like a platform like you were discussing, but yeah, we definitely sort of do something similar in a way.
Sounds like there might be space for more development, perhaps in that field. If there's anyone listening who knows, we always talk about the person with the next idea is going to be, is going to revolutionize things. It sounds like there's some space there. So I guess for the teachers listening, and they might think that they've got a few students that would really benefit from some face-to-face experience or getting into the back end of agribusiness and learning about it. David, how would a teacher go about engaging with yourself, for example, and trying to bring some students along perhaps to the bank to meet you?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, Amy, confidentiality, we just work in an open office, so confidentiality might create some issues there. But what we can do is meet them at industry events, or for example, if they had students, they were taking a group out to the Gracemere Sale Yards for a look at what goes on there. We can arrange to meet there. We can come and talk to them at their school if they want us to do that. Because I think one thing about ag is everyone that's in it loves it and wants to see the future generations coming through. So yeah, not a real easy one to come and just do work experience here, but we're happy to go and meet with people. Amy?
We also talk about incursions. Would you be interested in, if you got an invitation to come into a school to do a presentation or a discussion there? Is that something that you'd be
Yeah,
interested in?
certainly.
Mhm.
And I think for the teachers, it's right now is a great time because we're coming into our bull selling season, for example. A lot of the studs have got their field days on farm with bull walks. So there's opportunities to get students out to have a look at what's going on.
And I think that we discussed a lot today. Both Jonathan and yourself followed, I guess, a tertiary path into this career, went to university, and and that was where your, I guess, path into agribusiness began, in a sense. Is there any other paths into working for NAB other than that sort of university route?
Um, I believe the preference, we have a grad program to bring new entrants into the part of the business I work in, Amy.
Mhm.
So I think the grad program might be 18 months, with the ability to move around some different sections of our business in different parts of Australia.
And that's after university, so you
That's
graduate.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, look, and I believe you can apply when you're in your last year, when it looks like you're almost done and dusted.
Mhm, mhm. Jonathan, from where you're sitting at the moment, do you have any, I guess, colleagues that haven't followed that traditional tertiary path? Or, I think that's an important part of this conversation. We spoke about specific subjects that maybe teachers should be encouraging their students to study, but perhaps just the idea that they do need to complete, enough subjects to be able to go to university, and if they're interested in agribusiness, and that's the path. Is that fair to say, or do you see any other pathways?
I think historically you probably didn't need any degree or sort of formal qualifications for it, and certainly some of the bankers I sit around with didn't go to uni, and they're fantastic bankers. So it's definitely not something that you used to need. Moving forward, I think there probably will be a greater demand for doing a university course to get through. But on that, I don't think, I don't think that there's enough graduates for banks to have the luxury of picking only agribusiness, and sometimes they will expand their scope across a few degrees, because you don't need an agri background to necessarily do this. Comes down to some other skill sets. So yeah, no, I don't think necessarily you have to start off and do an agricultural business degree or anything agri related. If you've got the right skill sets, then it's definitely an opportunity to sort of migrate into a role like this. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And David, before we discuss some of those other, I guess, non financial skills that people need to be able to be successful in this career as well. We've had one question come through from the chat, and I forgot to mention earlier, but to all of our attendees, if you'd like to ask a question of David or Jonathan, please just drop it into the chat function of the webinar of Zoom down the bottom there, and I'll be able to pose the question to the guys. We have one question in relation to work experience, which we sort of covered on earlier when I said, how do we engage? Is it possible for students to come into the bank? I asked you, David, Jonathan, and you said due to confidentiality, not really an option for NAB. Jono, is it the same situation at Westpac? Do you feel that work experience is a bit difficult in this, in this industry?
Yeah, I've never explicitly asked about it, but I have heard conversations that touched on the same sort of points, that it is hard to coordinate considering it's such a small time. It's normally only 1 or 2 weeks of work placement, but getting around those confidentiality things within the bank poses definitely some challenges behind it. So I'm not sure if there's any other sort of companies or businesses outside of the bank that could offer something similar, but maybe not necessarily sort of client orientated sort of thing.
So we have to think outside the box a bit, like we discussed, maybe incursions, or David suggested going along to events or to the sale yards and sort of meeting there, less in a specific sense, I guess, and more just generally discussing the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the other banks would offer support, but there's a lot that goes into bull selling. So whether it's just a daily excursion or if it can be a bit of a classroom activity, there's a lot of genetic evaluation that goes into bull buying. So maybe it's not just necessarily an excursion; it's a classroom activity where there's an assignment on the back of it where they talk about the genetic implications and the top price bull or something along those lines. So.
And a good example of what David mentioned earlier about being a jack of all trades, having a mind across everything from grazing and the growing of crops and that sort of thing through to genetics. And you guys must just jump through meetings and have to change gears in your brain to be able to go through all these different industries and discuss them. And David, yeah. I guess we're getting to sort of the end of our conversation. So if anyone does have any questions, please drop them in soon before we kind of wrap up. But I was thinking, I guess at this stage in your career, you've enjoyed your career and it's been, one of many twists and turns and opportunities. Is it something that you would recommend to the next generation? Obviously, there's a bit of tech disruption happening at the moment. Do you have a positive outlook for the agribusiness field?
I certainly believe that they're always going to need a human content, Amy, because it still takes all the AI in the world extracting from financials, etc. It still takes that bit of human content to let our fellows in credit know what the customers actually, what their plans are, and why that what they want to do works for them. So, but yeah, in terms of a rewarding career, it's fantastic when you help a business to grow, whether it's buying 1 or 2 properties, and down the track you see the success there. That's rewarding. But some of the greatest satisfaction has actually come in 2011 and 2013, after we had some pretty nasty floods, and we had customers severely impacted, and being able to see them through to where, obviously that's quite some time ago now, but to see how strong those businesses are, that's equally as rewarding.
I think that when you mentioned that, and I sort of was thinking it a bit earlier as well, you obviously have to be a pretty resilient person to be able to ride through those difficult times with your clients as well, people that you've had a relationship with for a long time. And obviously not every business makes it through these difficult experiences.
No, unfortunately, not everyone survives, but those that do the hard yards, like I say, very rewarding when you look at them now, how strong they are, and think and reflect on some of those dark days.
Jonathan, at a different stage in your career, you mentioned earlier that you're not sort of customer facing at the moment. Hearing David's sort of thoughts on that, is that the direction that you're hoping to head into, that business manager sort of, bank manager sort of role, or what are you thinking for your career?
Yeah, no, definitely. sort of the natural progression, I think. It's coming into it, like I've said before, completely naive on financial terms and the systems and how banks operate and how they function. So definitely starting off in a non-customer facing role where you have the luxury of being able to fully understand all the processes and the steps you need to go through. It really provides a bit of comfort moving forward. But that natural succession of going from ARM to manager is certainly sort of the projection I'm looking for. So
Cool. We've got some great questions rolling in as well. So, quick one: do you get to do much travel outside of Central Queensland, David?
Only personally, no, because at the end of the day, we're relationship bankers, and so we want to deal with businesses that are operating in CQ. NAB's a very big agri bank, Amy, and I've got colleagues all over the state. So, we've got people in Dalby, so there's no point in me looking after someone in Dalby, for example.
And they don't send you overseas to any exciting conferences or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, COVID's donged all the good travel. Amy, once upon a time, we did used to get together for training, etc. But no, the banks organise overseas tours for customers, and I believe sometimes you can be lucky enough to hit the jackpot. But I think I'm one of about 500 in my division. So it's a bit of a lotto win if you get picked.
Yeah. John, another one here. Technology is constantly changing, and how we produce food and the investment required to do that. How do you keep up with the latest innovations? I guess thinking if there's students out there that could be keeping, is there things that you read or ways that you stay across what's happening in the industry?
Yeah, so obviously I sort of have a research background, so I've sort of got the luxury of being able to come into the uni here and read off any research papers. So whilst it's probably more centred to research sort of aspects, there's definitely some key components in there that you can pick up, and terminology, and relate that back to customers. Obviously, if they care about average daily weight gain and you've just read a great paper or a bit of research, that obviously puts you on a good foot when you're talking to them. I guess technology and other things, the broader industry, market reports, I generally go through them. I go through property listings, livestock listings, just to keep a track of the markets and where it's heading. Again, that's just a way to talk to customers when I need to. Not that I do a lot of that, but and it's a good way to sort of expand your knowledge of the broader industry. In terms of technology, really not something that I specifically sit down and read on studying that. I guess following like a lot of the expos and shows is probably a way to sort of get a good taste of what's happening at the moment. So beef farming expos, generally there's normally a write-up or a list of attendees somewhere that through there, and if there's anything particular in technology that really sparks your interest, that can probably set you down that hole there. So
what about you, David? Anything that you sort of engage with during the week or?
So, for example, your old stomping ground of Emerald, we've got Agro out there each year. So there's always something there on the front foot. In the grain industry, the GRDC, there's a lot of work being done there. And if you follow the GRD, was a Grain Research and Development Company Corporation, Meat and Livestock Australia, follow them. They also spend a lot of time and effort on developing product and technology.
Mm-hmm. And I've got a question here from Phil. Can you see any trends in regards to pathways into your industry? Are you thinking a particular group of possible entrants is being missed out on? Is there any particular type of pathway that yields people who are successful in your industry? What do you guys think?
Hey, Jonathan, I'll jump in first if you don't mind, mate. I used to think you had to have a rural background to go well, but that's just not correct. Jonathan mentioned earlier understanding the numbers. That is important. So in terms of any group missing out, I certainly don't think so when I see the the grads coming through, because they're electing to come into our business. Yeah, over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of thing. There is obviously an intake pathway, and I think Westpac's now doing a grad program as well for undergrad. So I think that's definitely probably the major pull. In terms of specific groups that are missing out, probably not based on anything in particular. But I guess the biggest thing would be if they do have an interest to just apply and get in contact. It doesn't matter if you're 3 years out of uni or you haven't gone to uni. There might always be opportunities somewhere to sort of join and come through. So I know people who sort of applied for that, the graduate programs didn't get it, and now they still work in the bank anyway. So I guess persistence into knowing that you sort of want to give it a go is probably the biggest sort of thing coming into it.
Great. That was a good question. Thanks for the question, Phil. And just lastly, I've got one more here. What is something that would surprise people the most about a job in agribusiness? You can start, Jono. What do you think?
Oh.
Question without notice. Quick.
I guess the processes behind it. Like, it's not just someone comes in, has a chat with someone, and they get money. Like, there's a lot of internal processes and regulation that goes into the customer getting the loan in the end. So yeah, David mentioned on it before, but we prepare a deal. I prepare it, like, assisting the manager preparing it. We submit it to the credit team. They go through it. Then it goes to another team, and then it sort of keeps passing hands until we get to settlement with a different team again. So there are lots of little steps in there that, on surface, people might not appreciate or know about. But there is a fair bit of behind the scenes work that goes into getting money effectively. So
yeah, I know when you apply for money, speaking from personal experience, it does feel like it's one person that, I guess, and that's the point, is that you're just dealing with one contact point person. But yeah, big organization. And what about for you, David? What's something that people would be surprised by?
We actually work a lot longer than the hours the bank's open, Amy. I think a lot of people think we're 9:30 to 4, and yeah, no chance. So that quite often customers will, when you're first getting to meet them, they'll say, "Oh, look, I didn't ring you until 10 o'clock because I didn't think you were at work until 9:30."
And you're at work at 10? When do you get there? Share the secrets. I've got a friend who's a bank teller, and she told me that the hours there are good. So obviously all the different roles within the bank. So yeah. Then we do have another question that's just popped in from Tanya. She was wondering, are there more farms and opportunities with regenerative type are you finding there's more farms and opportunities with regenerative type farms, or is it still pretty traditional farming still? Are you seeing a trend there, David?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because our early adopters, some of them, they don't call themselves regenerative, but they moved to zero till and tram tracks back in the 90s, if they were farming people. So they're like I say, they're early adopters. They're way ahead of the curve. And as I was saying earlier, the ag is very innovative. So there's always a lead. There's always people catching up. And those they're looking for the next thing now. Whether they're moving to using swarm farm sprayers or whatever it is, they're always looking over the horizon for the next opportunity to improve their productivity.
Mm. Is it hard for those early adopters sometimes when they're the first people to come up with an idea or close to get funding for those new things?
No, because the ones that are good at it take you on the journey with them. So that they'll have done their research to tell you why their business is going to be so much better for going down the path they're going to choose.
It almost answers that question that I asked you earlier of, what do you need to read to be on the front foot? It's really almost what people are bringing into the bank, right? That's probably the beginning of their journey anyway. It's coming in to get some support on it. So you probably are on the front foot of the newest technology because it's presenting itself to you in that way, I guess.
That's right, yeah.
Mm. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, David and Jonathan. We really appreciate your insight and I guess your guidance on how people can seek careers within agribusiness. It's been a really well attended session, so I think that's a great indication of that there's a real interest out there in this industry and in this sector. And, you guys have both shared some really I guess, inspiring points about why it is a great career for students to be considering. So thank you for your time today.